Hi, I'm Simone, and this is the Happily Self-Conscious podcast, the show where it's cool to be self-conscious. As a personal development enthusiast, I love to learn how I can become better in all areas of life, and I want to share with you transformative tips and tricks to help you also become your best self. Together, we'll learn how we can become more self-conscious. Let's do it. Hi, welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. And hello, if this is your first time ever listening to the show, I'm happy you're here. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is all about outgrowing your environment. I like to call it overstaying your welcome. You've basically stayed somewhere or in something for too long, and you were supposed to have left a while ago. You were supposed to have moved on. And it happens to all of us. When we outgrow spaces, staying in that space anyway is actually really painful. Or it can be. I know it is for me. Things start to feel really uncomfortable. So today we are going to talk about what it feels like when it's time to move on. And I'll share some of the signs that I get when it's time for me to move forward. And we'll talk about how knowing what your personal signs and signals are can pave the way for your own personal growth and overall happiness. One major sign for me that I have outgrown my environment is that I'm just going through the motions. You're just doing what needs to be done, but you're not really enjoying it. You're just kind of there. And you might feel stagnant. And that could be a sign that you've outgrown that space because you're no longer being challenged. Your skills and your knowledge and experiences aren't expanding. And I don't believe that we'll be in love with everything that we do, but when there is some sort of challenge and you're having to rise to an occasion, that can create an interest all on its own. And I don't know about you, but when I realize that I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, or it's no longer challenging me to grow, I know that I have overstayed my welcome there and that it's time to move on. And I'll just say, I didn't always know that that's what that feeling meant. But when it becomes a pattern, it's hard to ignore. Another sign that you might be outgrowing your environment is that your personal values or beliefs have evolved and they no longer align with that environment. This is a big sign. And beliefs are interesting because as we get older, our beliefs change. We release or let go of old beliefs and we choose new ones sometimes. Our confidence grows, we learn about ourselves, and sometimes our new beliefs and personal values, they can't exist in the environment that we've been in. They just don't mesh and they call for something different. And I feel like this is a big one in relationships. And I see why some couples, I've heard of them doing check-ins every now and then to see where their heads are at. Has anything changed? What do you value in this moment? And it could just be you checking in with you if you don't have a partner, but it's really about figuring out what your current beliefs and values are. And in my experience, changing your environment because your beliefs and values have changed is so hard because maybe you were only able to even be in that environment in the first place because you hadn't yet discovered your values. It shifts everything. And you never want to continue to overstay your welcome to accommodate old beliefs or values. Hey, it's me. I just wanted to pop in and say that I would love for you to join me over in the free Happily Self-Conscious virtual book club where we will be discussing self-help novels once a month. We'll be starting discussions for the one and only Atomic Habits by James Clear starting February 28th, chapters 1 through 4. I have heard nothing but amazing things about this book, so I'm super excited to get into it with you. Click the link in the show notes to join the club, start reading, and prepare to discuss. I hope to see you there. I've realized that there are times where you've outgrown an environment, and one of the signs could be that there's conflict and tension in that environment. And maybe that's new. Maybe it's been fine all the way up until this point, but the conflict is increasing. And I feel like when you're in the right place at the right time, there's this sense of harmony. Things are light. But when you've overstayed your welcome or outgrown your environment, conflict increases and things don't seem light anymore. And it might be because your values or priorities clash with someone else's. I honestly believe that most conflicts happen because someone overstayed their welcome. It's really helpful to know what the signs are for you specifically so that you know when it's time to pivot or move on, because staying in spaces that are not big enough to accommodate your growth will suffocate you eventually. And that sounds pretty dark. I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. And once you've recognized your own signs, you just got to accept that it's okay to outgrow your current situation. You don't have to stay small. It's okay to grow. It's not easy, but it is okay. And it's very necessary because, no one should want to stay the same forever, right? And we have to remember that growth involves moving out of our comfort zone because that's where the magic happens. You can get ahead of overstaying your welcome by checking in with yourself from time to time to reflect on your goals and your values and your dreams to decide if they are aligned with your current environment. And how do you feel in that current environment? Does that environment allow you to grow in the way that you want to? Because honestly, there are signs that you've outgrown where you are before things get too uncomfortable. We just have to be open to seeing them and acting on them. Outgrowing your environment and choosing to stay in that environment anyway could be really detrimental for your journey. And it's not easy to abandon what you know. Admitting that you have to move on can create a lot of very uncomfortable emotions, but holding back and stunting your own growth willingly is far worse. So, if you find yourself outgrowing your environment, consider it a signal that you're evolving into a better version of yourself. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's not about leaving behind what was. It's about stepping into what can be. The quote for today is, "There is such a thing as outgrowing your environment. This happens when you start dreaming bigger than the box you were raised in and can't fit living in a box a second longer." Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Happily Self-Conscious podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, share it with a friend. Follow the podcast before you go so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, have a great rest of your day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And if you see another one on the list that you think looks interesting, take a listen or just download it for later. I'll see you next time.